Before we dive into the story, make sure to subscribe to my channel and help me reach 1,000 subscribers. I promise you won't regret it. The wind rolled slow over the plains, brushing tall yellow grass like an old woman's fingers across faded linens. Silas Boone rose before the sun, as he did every day, stepping out onto the porch of the cabin he'd built with rough hands and quiet guilt. The world still smelled of cold ash and wild sage. A thin curl of wood smoke lifted from the chimney behind him, barely visible in the dawn. He stood still as stone, eyes tracing the line where the pine-covered hills met the pale pink sky, jaw clenched like it was holding back the years. He hadn't spoken more than a handful of words to another soul in 7 winters. The cattle down in the lower pasture were just shapes in the fog. He'd tend them soon, mend the loose fence line and set fresh traps along the ridge trail. But for now, he just listened, to the wind, to the groaning porch boards, to the absence of everything else. There were mornings when the silence felt sacred. Other times, it pressed against his ribs like something trying to dig its way in. They still called him Ghost Boy Boone in town. He knew. Eli told him once, half apologetically, like a child whispering a bad dream. Silas had only nodded. He didn't much care. Let them believe what they wanted. Let them think he'd gone half wild after the barn fire. Maybe he had. Inside, the fire crackled low, throwing long shadows across the floor. His brother's old saddle hung from a rusted nail on the far wall, untouched since that night. The leather still stank faintly of smoke. Silas didn't ride anymore. He poured black coffee into a tin cup and leaned against the porch post, gaze scanning the road that wasn't really a road, just a worn path where wheels once rolled and didn't come back. He liked it that way. People meant questions. People meant remembering. By mid-morning, the sky had turned sharp and clear, a blue so white it made a man feel small. He was hauling a bale of hay to the lean-to when he saw it, movement by the tree line. He paused, every muscle going still. It wasn't an animal. It was a figure, human, stumbling. He squinted. Too far to see the face, but he could tell by the posture, hurt, desperate, and moving like each step cost more than the one before. A woman, dress torn, hair loose, one hand pressed against her ribs. She crossed the grass like she didn't see it at all, like the land had vanished beneath her. Silas took 2 steps toward her, then stopped. Her legs gave way. She collapsed onto his porch. The sound of her fall was small, more of a whisper than a thud. Dust curled up around her like it wanted to hide her. Her hands scraped raw against the planks. Blood. Her head hung low, dark strands of hair sticking to her cheek, and for a long breath, she didn't move. Silas stared at her. Her breathing was shallow, wet. One boot gone, the other half torn. Her dress, once patterned with tiny flowers, now stained with dirt, blood, and what looked like dried tears. He saw the bruise beneath her collarbone. Old. Yellowing. He felt something shift in his chest, slow and unfamiliar. She didn't look up, just muttered something he couldn't catch. He crouched low, boots creaking beneath him. She flinched. Not a cry, not a word, just a jolt, like a leaf hit by wind. She tried to crawl, failed, and slumped again. His voice cracked from disuse. Her eyes flicked toward him, green and feral, like she hadn't trusted another human in a long, long time. She opened her mouth, then shut it again. She wasn't ready. Maybe she'd never be. He didn't ask anything more. Just reached for her carefully, hands open and slow, like easing a spooked animal out of a snare. She let him lift her, one arm limp around his shoulder. She weighed almost nothing. Inside the cabin, the fire welcomed them with a hiss. He laid her gently on the cot, brushing aside the faded quilt. She groaned. He found a clean rag and a bowl of water, started wiping the blood from her temple. The wound was shallow but messy. Her lip was split, cheekbone swollen. She didn't cry. He caught a glimpse of something tucked into the waist of her skate, a thin leather necklace with a silver medallion, cracked down the center. It looked like it had once meant something. He didn't touch it. When she finally slept, her fingers curled tight into the blanket, as if afraid someone might take it from her. Silas sat across the room, elbows on knees, staring into the fire. His rifle leaned against the wall beside him. The silence had changed. No longer empty. It pulsed with a shallow breath, her presence soft but undeniable. Something about her haunted him, not just the injuries, not just the silence she shed, but something deeper. Like she'd seen the same kind of ending he had, and crawled out anyway. Outside, the sun crept low again, casting long shadows across the porch where her blood still stained the planks. He didn't clean it. Not yet. It felt like the land needed to remember. In town, the wind would carry whispers soon. A ghost had opened his door, and let another one in. The storm came 3 days after she arrived, not from the sky, but from the dirt roads that led back to town. Silas heard it in the clatter of hooves, in the gravel churn of wagon wheels long before the knock sounded on his door. By then, the woman had healed enough to walk, though she still moved like every breath bore weight. She stood behind the cabin wall, watching him from the shadows. Sheriff Duggan didn't wait for an invitation. He stepped onto the porch like he owned the wood beneath him, badge glinting in the afternoon light. His eyes flicked once toward the bloodstain that still marked the steps, then found Silas's face. "Here you've got company up here," the sheriff said. "Town's curious." Silas didn't answer. He leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, face unreadable. The wind blew pine needles across the clearing. Behind him, he felt her stillness, how tightly she clutched the edge of the wall. Duggan's voice lowered. "Folks say she might be trouble. Indian woman, bruised up, no last name. You know where she's from." Silas didn't blink. "She's not yours to take." The sheriff narrowed his eyes. "You sure about that? Could be someone out there looking for her. A husband, maybe. Or worse." A long silence stretched between them. Then the door shut, slow and final. Duggan didn't knock again. That night, they didn't speak. She stowed beans in the pot, silent except for the soft clink of the wooden spoon. Silas sat nearby, carving a piece of cedar with a knife that had belonged to his father. The firelight danced between them, gold and flickering. She watched him carefully, like a coyote waiting to see if the trap had teeth. Then, after a long pause, she spoke, her voice low, hoarse. His name was Seth. Silas didn't look up. "He married me when I was 16. Said I'd be safe. But he had too many fists. Too many reasons to use them." She kept stirring. "Last week, he rode home drunk. I was already gone." Silas met her eyes. For the first time, she didn't look away. "He dead?" he asked. Her lips twitched, but it wasn't a smile. "Not yet." They ate in silence, but something in the room had changed. Not softened, not quite, but shifted, like a door unlocked, if only just. The next morning, he found her outside, splitting kindling with his old axe. Her movements were clumsy but determined. Sweat darkened her dress, and her hands were blistering. "You don't have to," he began. "I know," she said, not pausing. Still doing it. Later, she placed a bundle of herbs on the windowsill, wild mint and yarrow. Said they'd keep flies out. She didn't ask to stay. She just never left. The town did not forget. Mrs. Emery sent a pie, though she didn't sign her name. Eli came by with a sack of flour, eyes wide, whispering that folks were saying Silas had taken in a woman with blood on her skirt and vengeance in her heart. Silas only said, "Town talks too much." The days passed, stitched together with quiet glances and shared work. She began sweeping the porch each morning. He started leaving a cup of coffee for her beside the fire. One night, when the wind howled and the cabin creaked like old bones, she showed him the scars. She lifted her sleeve first, long, jagged welts that curved like rivers down her arm. Then she turned, let the dress slip low on her back. Silas didn't move, didn't speak. The fire crackled, and the storm outside felt suddenly very far away. "These aren't the worst," she said. He reached out slowly, his fingers stopping just shy of her skin. She turned to face him, and something flickered in her gaze, defiance and shame all tangled together. He placed something in her hand, a tin star, dull and bent. "His brother's badge. Figured you've earned one." She held it like it was made of glass. Then, with careful hands, she set it on the mantel beside a carved wooden horse. Nothing else was said. The following day, dust rose in the distance, riders. 3 of them. Town men. One carried a shotgun across his saddle. They came without smiles, without greetings. The woman stood behind the cabin, watching through the gap in the wall. The men dismounted. Their boots hit the dirt like warning shots. One stepped forward, a lean man with too much pride in his eyes. Name's Garrett. Her husband's cousin. Silas said nothing. We're taking her back. She belongs with her own. She doesn't belong to anyone, Silas replied. Garrett spat. You don't get to decide that, Boone. The shotgun shifted. The message was clear. Inside the cabin, she stepped forward. Walked past Silas, chin high, eyes burning with something fierce. I ain't yours, she told Garrett. Never was. You ran off with a drifter, he growled. You think that makes you free? I think I bled enough to decide for myself. The shotgun lifted. Silas moved like wind. No noise, just motion, and his rifle was in his hands before breath returned. He didn't aim, just held it low and steady. Garrett saw the steel behind his eyes and stepped back. This ain't over, he muttered. No, Silas said. It's just started. They left in a cloud of dust. The air didn't settle for a long time. That night, she carved something into the hearthstone beside the badge, just a shape. A moon. He didn't ask why. And as they sat on the porch, side by side, the wind softer now, he realized the silence between them was no longer hollow. It was something built, earned. He poured her a cup of coffee without a word. She took it, her fingers brushing his, firm and warm. And in that quiet, beneath stars that blinked like old gods watching from afar, neither of them felt alone.